All right, so I guess we can go ahead. I'm gonna go ahead and do the introduction. All righty, so welcome, Facebook family. Those of you all that are tuning in here to our virtual seminar. I'm so excited. I have a very special guest, but I'll let her introduce herself. So I'm going to introduce myself. I'm Pastor Matt Tobias Johnson. I'm the senior pastor of House of Love Ministries here in South Florida. I am also the founder of Journaling Saves Lives, which is a mental health advocacy, little tongue-tied, advocacy organization where we facilitate seminars for the general public to educate in mental health matters. We also serve as a liaison for those that are dealing with mental health issues. We also actually assist people with paying for their therapy visits because that's how passionate I am and we are at House of Love and Journaling Saves Lives to seeing people healed, healthy, and whole. Yes, we go that extra step to try to actually help people and pay for their visits, okay? And so, listen, that's our way of being that support system. And so this is what this organization is all about. And I just want to briefly read off something about the page that you're actually on today. If you go to Journaling Saves Lives page, it is the group page. We have a community page and we have a group page, all right? You'll be able to find various mental health resources, but I'm going to just read this because it's important that you all have this information. So, and you all give me one moment. I think I need to share the video inside. Oh, let me see. Okay, so we're inside here. Good. All right, just making sure. Okay, y'all bear with me. Just want to make sure we have all of this right. All right, so Journaling Saves Lives is a Christian-based mental health advocacy organization that was founded in 2016 due to a desire to see people take a more proactive approach to their mental and emotional health, just as they do with their spiritual and their physical health. Our foundation scripture is Hebrews 12:1, stripping off every unnecessary weight. We facilitate educational seminars and competency trainings for the general public to educate on mental and emotional health matters. Our organization, as I mentioned, I'm just reading off, also serves as liaison to connect those who are affected by various disorders directly and indirectly. All right, because our concern is not just for those that are directly affected, but those that are indirectly affected by taking care of family, friends, and loved ones who are dealing with a mental health problem. We must take care of those people as well by connecting them to the peer and professional resources that they need. The Journaling Saves Lives group page on Facebook is specifically to form a community, a safe haven, a resource point of contact for people who have or symptoms pointing towards emotional distress, depression, mental illness, severe and progressive, and those who are spiritually declined. We connect them with specialized resources and generalized wellness tools, such as journaling and meditation, and of course, the specialized tools, therapy, counseling, and so forth. I am certified in mental health first aid, and I'm a graduate of Malone University. I do have I have a business background, but I also have continuing education in behavioral, developmental, and social psychology. So I enjoy that. I also have some experience, some training, and some coursework in the areas of suicide prevention, racial diversity and inclusion, interpersonal conflict management, emotional and social intelligence, and the list goes on. But please, we would love for you all to connect to us here on Facebook. Journaling Saves Lives. We have a community page and a group page. Please connect to us, and we are also on Twitter. And then our email address is journalingsaveslives@yahoo.com. So listen, I'm excited about today. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to turn this portion of the presentation into the hands of my special guest, and she's going to introduce herself, and you all are in for a treat. Please share the video. It is in the Journaling Saves Lives group page. You can share it from there. Just be sure, listen, that people that comes into the group, They'll have to be accepted as a member if they want to be able to see the video from the group page. But nevertheless, I'm going to turn it over into the hands of Miss Carmella Hill.
All right. Thanks, Debbie. Thank you so much, Matt. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to share at this particular time. I'm appreciative for any opportunity to share about mental health. It is a passion of mine. It has been a passion. This is my 22nd year in mental health. And so I'm so grateful and so privileged. I am a licensed professional clinical counselor in the state of Ohio with supervising credentials. And like I said, I've been in the field a number of years, teaching capacity, training capacity, instructing capacity, counseling, and giving uh, help. I guess you would just kind of lump something into just helps and things like that. And so I've just been trying my best to instill hope, to give people a way to reach out, to be able to share, to be able to get the strength that they need, the encouragement they need to be able to move on through this journey in life. And so the topic that I've been given today, and we'll move right along, and I do want people, if they could put maybe comments in the chat box there, on the Facebook Live there. If you can just put your comments there, whether you're doing the replay or whether you're doing the live version, just put some comments. Also put questions. We definitely will respond to those questions if we don't get an opportunity to do it during the live. But I do want to give people an opportunity to ask some questions and things of that nature. If you want to share it to the email that Matt had mentioned, you can go ahead and do that as well. I'll have him to post that in the comments if you could, and then people can use that as well as an opportunity to maybe ask a question if they don't want to put in the comment section or the live version. So, but we want to give you information, kind of share a little bit here. We don't want to take a whole lot of time in your afternoon here, but we're grateful for you being a part. So the topic is stress, addictions, and depression. Stress, addictions, and depression. So be sure to share this out, share this information out. I tell people you never know who needs it. You never know who's suffering in silence. You never know who's dealing with whatever they're dealing with that is causing them the stress in their lives. So they may need some sort of help and some sort of encouragement along the way. So share this out again. You never know who needs to see this now or even in the future. So stress, addictions, and depression. And so when you look at that, I want you to kind of consider being aware of our moods, because what we don't realize is that our moods will have us in a place. And I want you to kind of be mindful of what is triggering this sad experiences. So that stress, addictions, and depression, the acronym for it, for those initials, is SAD. What's triggering these sad expressions, these sad experiences that we are living out in our various lives? And so, one I want to deal with is mood triggers. What are those mood triggers? What are those changes, the difficulties, the coping issues, the adapting issues? What are those issues that has our moods going up and down as we experience life? You know, we are in a pandemic. We are in a point where we're not sure what's going to happen. We're not sure how things are going to continue or whether they're going to be back the same or whatever the case may be. And I just want us to kind of be mindful that we're never going to go back to where we were before. Things have changed since then. Even if we go back to some routines being similar, but the reality is things have changed, things have shifted. And so we need to kind of be mindful that how do I make that adjustment in the midst of what I'm dealing with, in the midst of what I'm experiencing? How can I make that adjustment? Okay, so what's triggering that sad experiences, those stressful, addiction, depression type experiences? Our mood changes. Are we having changes in appetite? Are we having changes in our sleep? Are we having changes in being overly sad or emotional or things of that nature? Are we having suicidal thoughts? Oh, dare I say that? Yes, suicidal thoughts. Are we having homicidal thoughts? You know, so maybe you don't want to hurt yourself, or maybe you want to hurt somebody else real good. You know, so are you having those particular thoughts? Are we feeling helpless and hopeless and worthless in the midst of what we're experiencing? So, what are those mood triggering kinds of experiences? Are we having changes in our interest and our motivation? Again, what's changing and shifting us to make us feel a certain kind of way, right? So think about that. What is triggering that sad experience when it comes to our moods? What is happening that all of a sudden I feel downcast? All of a sudden I feel the heaviness or weight, or whatever that might be in your mental capacity or your emotional capacity. What is that that is weighing down on our brain system? And so we want to think about that. What's triggering sad experiences when it comes to anxiety? Anxiety. No one wants to deal with that. No one wants to deal with the mood issues, but we don't always want to deal with the anxiety because it's causing our flesh to kind of feel uncomfortable. It's causing our physical body to feel uncomfortable. And so these anxiety triggers, what are those things? Oftentimes those are thoughts. Those are perceptions. Those are perspectives. Those are perhaps fears and worry and doubt, and all of those things that kind of spark up and trigger some sort of uneasiness in our body and some sort of unsettledness in our body. So, what are those anxiety triggers? And as a result of those triggers, it results in either us having a flight mode or a fight mode or a freeze reaction mode. So, either we're going to fight and kind of go reactive that way, or we're going to do this flight mode. I'm getting up out of here. I am moving. I am exiting stage left very quickly. Or we're going to have that freeze mode. That freeze mode said, I don't know what to do. I'm just going to stand here. And it's not really in a healthy way. It is in a way that you're just immobilized, that the fear has gotten you stuck in a place. So are we feeling stuck in the situations that we're in? Are we feeling stuck in the places that we're in mentally and emotionally? What is keeping us in that mode where we feel like, oh, I can't get out of this? I posted on my particular page that talks about how we are oftentimes stuck because we only see things one way. We only see things one way, one particular perspective, one particular way of operating, one particular way of behaving and responding, one particular way of feeling, one particular way of thinking. We got to get out of that mode that we're stuck looking at things one way. There are so many angles to look at a situation, so many angles to look at a circumstance that we have to understand. What am I seeing here? What am I viewing? Am I viewing life through the eyes of fear? Ooh. Am I viewing life through the eyes of doubt? Am I viewing life through the eyes of I'm not sure, I'm feeling doubtful, I'm hopeless, I'm feeling helpless? Am I looking at my lens of life am I looking through my life through the lens of those particular things? What's going on here? Are we feeling restless and on edge? Some of that anxiety stuff. Are we feeling easily fatigued and tired out? And I'm upset. I don't want to deal with any of this. Are we dealing with concentration issues? Excuse me, concentration issues. Are we having problems focusing? Problems kind of having our minds um, nailed in on things that we should be focusing in on? Or are we looking at everything that's going to give us stress or everything that's going to cause us distress? Are we looking at those particular things? Are we having muscle tensions and things in our body that makes us feel like, our bodies are getting ready to break down? Oh, that's probably some anxiety, some worry, some fear, something else is going on there. Are we irritable? It's funny when you talk to people and you ask them, "Oh, how you doing?" I'm fine. Very snappy, and they're irritable. Something's going on, but maybe they don't want to talk about it. Maybe you don't have time to listen. I don't know, but something is going on just by their reaction, just by what they're saying and what they're thinking and what they're doing. So there may be irritability. What about sleep disturbances? Are we, getting enough rest? Are we allowing our bodies to reset itself at night or whenever your particular 8 hours, 7 hours, or whatever it might be? Are you allowing your body to reset itself? That is an opportunity for our bodies to kind of go back and get, refreshed and get revived and get restored as we have that moment of rest. So are we allowing ourselves to rest? Are we allowing ourselves to go through experiences and not have the experiences shape us to the point where it defines who we are? Not allowing those experiences to shape us to the point where it deters you from doing what you know you need to do. It takes you off course of your purpose. It takes you off course of your direction in life. It takes you off course of the path and the journey that you have, that you're moving from point A to point B. What is going on? What is going on? So we have to think about what is happening, that some things in life are causing me so much distress. that I feel like I am ready to check out of here, that I feel like I'm ready to be done with this? Are we aware of those thinking patterns? Are we aware of those feelings and those things that are associated with what we experience in our physical body? Anxiety is probably the number one disorder that people are diagnosed with, because oftentimes we're more comfortable talking about things that are happening within our body than we are talking about things that are happening within our mind. You will quickly go to the doctor and say, "Doctor, I'm feeling kind of stressed in my body," or "Doctor, I need something for this pain. Doctor, I feel a lot of headaches or something going on. Doctor, I feel like I'm, shortness of breath, or that I can't hardly breathe," or something to that effect. So you may go to the doctor with all of those particular ailments, but never probably go to the doctor and say, "Doctor, I'm having suicidal thoughts. Doctor, I'm so down and out and depressed, don't want to get out of bed." We don't want to necessarily talk about all of that because we know that's looking at more mental health things. So we'll talk about the physical. Okay. So oftentimes people will come with those physiological reactions to things, and they're not sure where it's coming from. They're not sure why all of a sudden they're irritable, all of a sudden their body aches, all of a sudden they have this pain out of nowhere, it seems. But they don't understand perhaps it's being triggered by something that's going on in our moods. So again, what's triggering these sad experiences, these stress, addictions, and depression type experiences? What's triggering that? Our moods and our anxieties that we've talked about thus far. If we can look at the idea of stress and what does that really mean? And this particular article has a reference down there: stress, 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 and more stress. I mean, we're getting stress all over the place on left and right, and we don't know what to do, what's happening, what's going on. And so we're not sure how to even do anything. But stress, I want you to think about it in this fashion: that stress refers to the processes involving perception, appraisal, and a response to harmful, threatening, or challenging events or stimuli. So, stress is something that can happen psychologically, it can happen emotionally, but it's our responses to things. It's our responses to how we are encountering things that may be harmful, that may be threatening in our emotionality, may be threatening in our thought process, may be threatening in our physical environment, challenging events and stimuli. If nothing else, the pandemic has created stress in many of us. We are all reacting differently to it. We are all responding differently to it. We are all perhaps having different perspectives about it. But the reality is, every last person on this earth is experiencing this pandemic at the same time. Think about that. Because there are some traumas that I haven't experienced that somebody else has. There are some traumas that somebody else have experienced that I haven't. But we all are experiencing this pandemic at the same time. Think about the mass potential trauma that we are experiencing in this country because of this pandemic. Think about that. That already has a level of stress to it that we couldn't even imagine, that we probably don't even have the coping skills to even try to deal with. But the reality is, there is some help and there is some ways to be able to manage even what we have never encountered before. Even as traumatic as it might be to many, we are still able to find some source of help, some source of strength, some source of support in the midst of this pandemic. Dare I say we can have peace in the midst of the pandemic? Ooh, somebody put that in the comments. Peace in the midst of the pandemic. Hashtag peace in the midst of the pandemic. Peace in the pandemic. Absolutely, we can. Absolutely. Why? Because it's a frame of reference. It is a mindset that we can get to a place where this thing is not going to take me out. I'm not going to pretend that it doesn't exist. I'm not going to pretend that it's not going on around me, but I am going to realize that I have to do what I can do and what I'm in control and able to do, because some things are totally out of our control. Oh, yes, some things we'll never be able to, if you will, change it if we tried, But what I can change is my thinking process. Oh, what I can change is my behaviors. What I can change is within my wherewithal, right? Okay. So stress increases the vulnerability to an addiction, whatever that addiction might be. Stress will increase that vulnerability to that. So it increase the opportunity that someone will use an addiction or some sort of way to cope Is there maladaptive coping that we would say in the profession, or their way that is unhealthy in their coping in order to deal with things? It's an unhealthy mechanism or way to deal with things, but is an opportunity where people feel like it is my relief. It is my way to get out of how I'm feeling. It's my way to get out of how I'm thinking. But it's not going to be healthy down the road. It's going to lead you down a road of possible destruction. It's going to lead you down a road of possible being depleted totally, and perhaps may lead you in a place where you're just done, you know? And so thinking about how stress will increase that, but then when you get into that addiction kind of cycle, it now increases the vulnerability to relapse into other things and to relapse into something maybe you came out of 10 years ago. Maybe you came out of 5 years ago. Maybe it's something you haven't dealt with, or that you dealt with, excuse me, let me say it that way, that you've dealt with successfully that you thought, and then all of a sudden it comes back up, the desire comes back up. You feel like, well, I can just go ahead and try a little drink. It ain't gonna hurt, just one drink. Knowing that you were in a state of alcoholism, that you were dependent upon it, that you were using that in a very maladaptive way, an unhealthy coping strategy, but you figure, well, it's not gonna hurt because we were used to doing those things to get our needs met. We were used to doing those things to kind of take care of how we felt about life and how we felt about us and our situations. But those kinds of things, stressful moments, will increase that. It leaves an opportunity in a space for those things to kind of creep in. So we have to think about them and be mindful of that. Stressful experiences can be emotional, can be psychological, can be physiological, and they challenge us and they activate this stress response in our system. It activates this kind of perspective that I'm either going to fight, I'm going to flight, or I'm going to freeze, or I'm going to do something in order to get out of what I'm feeling. Whether you're feeling that anguish in your mind, whether you're feeling that anguish in your body, whether you're feeling that in your thought process, or whatever the case may be. You have to understand, we have to understand that how our body responds to stress, it matters. It really does matter. But the challenging thing is trying to balance this out. The challenging thing is trying to figure out which way do I go? How do I get rid of some of this? How do I shift with some of this? How do I, in essence, know when enough is enough? Mm, how do I get to a point to say, I can't do this anymore, that this is too much to be dealing with? How can I get to a place that says, I've had as much as I can take at this particular point? Not to check yourself out of here, but perhaps to have the perspective that I need to let go of some things. I need to weigh my options here. I need to kind of balance this thing out because this is kind of leaving me a little lopsided one way or the other. It's kind of leading me in a direction that I'm not quite sure I want to kind of deal with. Perhaps it's leading you to a point that you might say, this is taking me overboard. This is taking me over the threshold. This is taking me over my line of what I feel I can handle. Because I think we all have a measure of what we think we can handle in life. And where it gets to the point where it teeter-totters over that, sometimes we don't know yet until we're overboard. And so I want us to think about what's leading up to you knowing that this is too much for me. What's leading up to the point where you can say in your mind, this is not, I don't know, kind of deal. Or I'm not understanding what I need to do at this point, but you feel like it's too much. You feel like, oh yeah, this is going over a little bit. I'm not sure what to do. Okay, so how do you lighten that load? How do you let some of that go? How do we sort of take a moment and take that inventory to say emotionally, what do I have going on here? Take that inventory of our thought process of what do I have going on here? Taking that inventory of I'm not sure how I can go about doing things. Taking that inventory of, perhaps I need to let go of this side a little bit and then more of this side and bump that up a little bit. So now the equilibrium can kind of come up a little bit in our emotions, and the equilibrium in our thought process can kind of come up a little bit. So we're not so stressful. But it's a balancing act to try to figure all of that out. Mhm. What do we do? What do we do with this? How do we know when enough is enough? How do you know when you're at that point, that stressful tipping point where it is at the tip and you're getting ready to go over the cliff because of the stress? You're getting ready to get over the other side thinking that this is so much and it's so overwhelming. Think about your own process and how what contributes to us continuing to be overloaded. What contributes to us continuing to allow things to just pile on and pile on and pile on and pile on some more? What is allowing us to keep going in that cycle of just adding more and more and more and more to the point where we're depleted, to the point where we're just down and we're out for the count, to the point where we're just like, I'm not dealing with this, you know? Why do we keep adding more on? And some of it is because we have some guilt in that. Sometimes it's really us being feeling guilty, whether it's feeling guilty because we're in a relationship and, oh, I want to make sure I'm pleasing this person, or we're on our jobs, we want to make sure that we're taking care of our responsibilities on the job. But you're not telling them that you're stressed. You're not telling them that I'm really having a struggle right now. You're not telling them that you need some additional help or some additional resources or something to support. But we'll just keep going and keep going. And then when we crash and burn, when we crash and we're out, we're done. It's at that point, it seems like a point of no return, but there still is a point that you can turn. Oh, yes, it can be turned. It can be turned. There can be a help. So I want you to kind of in your mind think about what's the balancing act that I need to play in my life right now, where I need to figure out what do I need to let go? What do I need to at some point say, this needs to go, that needs to go? But I've shifted my mindset to help people to understand that sometimes the struggle is not in letting go. Sometimes the struggle is finding out why we continue to hold on. Oh, yes. Sometimes the struggle is, why am I still holding on to this? Why am I still gravitating to this thing? Why am I still feeling as if this is the only way I'm able to operate and be able to live in life is holding on to this particular thing? We need to think about. And then we have that in our processes. When we have that in our thinking, when we start to process what that is about, then we'll probably be able to let it go sooner and easier than we thought because we haven't realized what's the need that this thing is giving me. I'm continue to hold on to this for why? There is something that's being met there. There is a need that's being met there. Mhm. So what contributes to that? Things that we can think about along the way. But when we start to think about stress and how it's impacting us, we have to understand that sometimes when we don't get the interventions that we need, we don't get the help that we need, we don't reach out like we should, we don't take advantage of resources and things like that like we should, we will find ourselves in a stage, in a mode of maladaptive coping. We will find ourselves at a point where we'll start to self-medicate. We'll find ourselves at a point where we'll start to use substances, whether legal substances or illegal substances. Legal substances for those that are 21 and up is alcohol. Okay. If you're under 21, it's illegal for you. I don't care who told you that it's okay, it's illegal for you, right? Okay. So if you're dealing with that, you kind of gotta adjust that. What about self-medicating with street drugs and illegal drugs out there? I understand medical marijuana is a thing in some states, some cities, and things like that. I understand that, and that may be a way that people think that, oh, this is a good way for me to cope. This is a good way for me to deal with life. That might be, but it still might get you in some trouble because really, it's your way of self-medicating versus dealing with what we need to deal with. But then there are some that deals with more illegal drugs, as we would say, and now with prescription drugs. So now let's think about those that we may be abusing that are prescription drugs. Maybe it's your own prescription drug, but you're doctor shopping. That you're going from doctor to doctor to get all kinds of Xanax and Ativan and, pain pills, Vicodins, Percocets, all those kinds of things, and going to different doctors with different ailments to get different prescriptions for your self-medicating behaviors. So we got to think about that. Am I self-medicating that way? What about if you're using somebody else's stuff? Oh, I don't want to talk about that. What if you use somebody else's prescription? They tell you, oh, you can go ahead and take these few pills I got. I got some extra ones, or I didn't use them all, or something like that. That's tough. That's tough. We got to be careful that we're not using these things to, again, deal with our own issues that we're experiencing and dealing with. So we're self. What about if we're becoming emotionally numb? That we really are not feeling. We're not expressing our emotions. We're denying our emotions. We're minimizing our emotions. We're ignoring our emotions because we're feeling so emotionally numb at that point. We're feeling so distressed that we're like, mm-mm. We're feeling like, you know what? I don't want to even, in that emotional numb, just kind of be just stoic and just no expression, no affect differences, things like that, just emotionally numb. What's keeping us in that place of feeling numb, right? What about us avoiding unpleasant reminders? That's a way of maladaptive coping, where we um, end up trying to deal with things, but we avoid it because we don't want to address it. We don't want to be concerned about it. Well, we know that we're concerned about it because we're trying to get away from it. So obviously we're worried about it in some way, but we're trying our best to get away from it. We're trying our best to not deal with it. So we're avoiding these things. What's that mechanism, that defense mechanism that we're using to avoid some things? Mhm. Avoid some things. Self-destructive behaviors. Those things could be cutting. Some people are using that. Some people are burning their skin because really what they're trying to do is to feel because they're emotionally numb, like I talked about. So they're trying to feel something in order to relieve the emotional pain they're experiencing, in order to relieve the mental pain that they're experiencing. So an individual might, in essence, become destructive towards their person in order to now just start to feel something, you know, because they feel so depleted, they feel so out of it. You know, so those things can lead us down a path where we're not being healthy in understanding where we are and what we're dealing with. Okay, want you to stop and think about it. Stop and think about it. Are we listening to our bodies? Ooh, what is it telling us? Are we listening to our bodies? Are we listening to what it's saying, what this alarm system in our bodies are saying to us? Mm. Is that body telling us you need to go ahead and sit down and take a chill pill? Is this body telling us that you know what you need to stop, pause, and take some of that stress off? Stop dealing with so much with all that stuff. Mm. Is this body telling us, like, wait a minute, you done did too much here? Is this body telling us, wait a minute, I'm feeling too much stress now. Body is all tense and muscles is all tense and things like that. What is our body telling us? What is it saying? Are we listening? It's knocking on your shoulder, telling you like, you better take a chill, settle down. Get some help, get someone else to encourage, someone else to kind of give you that support and that what you need. So, what is our body telling us? What is it saying? Oh my, what is it saying? What is it saying? My God, somebody put in the comment, let it go. Yes, it's saying let it go. It sure is. But are we willing to let it go? That's the piece. Are we willing to let it go? Because oftentimes what we're holding on to, it serves a purpose for us. What you say? Yes, it serves a purpose for us. We get some out of it. There's a secondary gain that we talk about in the profession. There is something else underlying that is being served and being helped, quote unquote, by that thing. So we have to be careful and be mindful of what is our body telling us to say, you need to kind of deal with that. You need to deal with some of that stress. You see something going on there. Mhm. So this body could be telling us all kinds of things, whether it's our physical body, whether it's our mind, whether it's our emotions, whether it's our behaviors. Our bodies is telling us something, but are we listening? So your own alarm system in your body, know where that stress level moves from kind of normal, healthy stress to that abnormal distress experiences, to that abnormal part of us where we start to look at life in a different way because of what we're experiencing. Again, it becomes the lens in which we look at life. And so is your body telling you that you're frequently having these headaches that you didn't have before? Your body telling you that you're having all these muscle tensions and fatigue and overly tired and things like that when you really probably shouldn't be at that moment. You're getting enough as far as sleep is concerned, as far as hours, but you're still waking up just as stressed. Is your body telling you when it comes to your emotions that perhaps they have low self-esteem or loss of confidence, or things are just feeling fuzzy or just a fog of some sort, feeling very irritable, down and out and depressed? Again, a sad experiences about the stress, addictions, and depression. Are we having feelings of alienation or isolation in this pandemic? That has been a huge issue for people, that they're feeling isolated because they're physically not able to be around those that they were normally around before. And so at some point, we have to be able to say to ourselves, wait a minute, I may be by myself, if you will, in this physical space, but I have supports. I have help. I have some a system of help for me. I have family that love me. So it's changing that emotionality from feeling isolated and alone to feeling like, okay, I can call somebody up. I can message someone or text someone or whatever, FaceTime someone or whatever the case may be. What is our mind telling us that we're so worried and distressed? Impaired judgment, making decisions, again, going back to the maladaptive coping. Are we making decisions that are not healthy for us? That are things that are based out of the lens in which we feel, right? So that negativity and feeling like we're, making decisions that are rash and irrational and things like that, because our mindset is shifting here. So that alarm in the mind is going off. What about the behaviors? Are we running around doing all kinds of things that we know are not healthy? Things that are not, if you will, helping us to see where we are. Perhaps are things that we're doing that we're not eating, or we're overeating, could be that thing. Or perhaps we're going into this addiction of, a drug or alcohol or things that I talked about already. But what about a sex drive? Because we're feeling lonely, isolated, we figure, well, I might as well just bring somebody on in here. We got to be careful. What need are we trying to satisfy here? hmm Are we feeling so restless, or maybe we figure like, why not smoke or do something like that? Again, the whole marijuana, medical marijuana perspective comes into play here. As many would say, well, I'm just gonna get a little something from my doctor and get the medical card, and then I'm good. But what are we trying to camouflage? Would be my question. What are we trying to hide and dismiss? Would be my question. hmm So know the effects of your body alarm system that is telling you, I don't know what to do and where to go. But I tell you, the more mindful we can be, the more in control of our thought and our thinking patterns we can be, the better off we'll be. hmm What does mindfulness look like in our lives? I want you to think about that. When you think about how mindful you might be in your life's perspective and circumstances, what are those things that bring you calmness, that brings you a level of comfort, that brings you a level of peace? I want you to put those in the comments if you could. Things that bring you a level of peace, things that bring you a level of calmness, things that you are mindful of, that kind of draws your mind and it centers you. What are those things that kind of bring you back into reality, if you will? It's like your reality check in your life. What are those things that kind of get you in that mode and that perspective that, wait a minute, I'm taking on too much. Let me see what else I can let go right now. Mhm. What are those kinds of mindful things? Yeah, people put in the comments, journaling. Absolutely. Journaling saves lives. That is the platform we're in right now. Right. So that's an opportunity to just kind of let go of some of this. What are those mindful things people can put in the comments? What are some things that people can even do? You may not necessarily engage in it, but what might be things that people can do? What about reading? Or some people go for walks, or do workouts, things like that. Some people do yoga and mindfulness kind of therapies and things of that nature. There's so many different things that people do. Whether listening to music, someone's put that out there, listening to nature sounds and things like that on YouTube. Awesome, awesome exercising. Absolutely. All those things are great things that people can do, in order to feel a little bit differently than where they are in their circumstances and their situations. Because sometimes we get to a point where we're just like all over the place. We just don't know what to do, where to go, how to behave, and we're just so confused about things. But the more mindful we can be, how can we create that mindfulness space? How can we create that our stress level will come down a notch or two or three? How can we create that space that says, you know what? In this moment, in this 5 minutes, I'm just going to allow myself to just be quiet. I'm going to allow my mind to just not focus on anything else but this moment in the here and now. I'm going to focus on my breathing. I'm going to focus on how I'm feeling in the moment. I'm going to focus on what do I need to adjust in life. So taking that mindfulness moment, that moment that says, I'm just going to breathe. Ooh, just taking those moments to just breathe. The moments to just breathe. To just say, right now, only thing that matters is I'm alive. Ooh, sometimes it comes down just to that, to I'm alive. Because in the midst of this pandemic and people are losing their lives and have lost their lives, the very breath we breathe is invaluable right now. It's invaluable. Mhm, that I'm alive. And so I always oftentimes want to leave people with some resources because as I stated, there is hope. There is help. And so if you have questions, you have comments, certainly put those in the chat box there in the Facebook Live if you can do that. But I want to give you a couple of resources that anyone can take advantage of. Okay. There's a national text line. For Ohio, it's coded as For Hope. But other places, there may be another tagline for your particular state. But even if you don't know what that tagline is for that state, you can still text 741-741 and be able to talk to a crisis counselor. So they are direct accordingly based on where you might be living or residing or where you might be at that particular moment. Because maybe you're out of town somewhere and you get distressed and you need some help. So 741-741. Again, that For Hope is for Ohio, but there are other triple names and other terms for the different states. But regardless, you don't necessarily need that. Just put help. Just put, I need somebody. I need someone to talk to, and just put that in your text. So 741-741, National Crisis Text Line. And then there's also the National Alliance on Mental Illness, or NAMI, that is normally termed. And they're throughout states, different cities and things like that, different counties. So that's a resource for those that may be dealing with various things. Family supports are needed or helpful there. Individuals who may be experiencing a mental health issue or crisis, they may experience some support there. So it's a good resource, a very good resource. There's also the National Institute of Mental Health, great resource there. I use some of those materials and things like that when I do various presentations. So very good quality information there. There's also the Mental Health America is another association that you can engage in or be connected with for resources, help, support. There's also, I like to tell people, write down in your own county of residence, wherever you may be, or it may be a combination of counties around you. But there are also mental health boards. They may be connected with the substance use board as well, or another type of board. But those are boards that will help give support and things of that nature. So in your county of residence, but you can also look at your state as well. So again, you may have some things there. So see some questions and comments here, and I want to acknowledge some of those questions here. One is the root of some mental health problems self-inflicted that could have been avoided with better decision making? I would say so. I'm gonna read that question again. Is the root of some mental health problems self-inflicted that could have been avoided with better decision making? Yes, I would agree. So some things we really do have more control over than we are giving credit to. And there are sometimes we make decisions that lead us down paths that makes other decisions that may not be healthy, that may not be appropriate, that may be maladaptive in coping. So some things could very well be based on some of our decision making and things like that. Some things are hereditary, some things we just are predisposed to with our families, with our genes and things like that. But a lot of times things are learned behaviors, things are learned reactions and emotional responses to things. Things are learned according to what we deal with in life. Okay, so yes, some of these things could definitely be rooted in our decision-making process. And that's why counseling and some sort of therapeutic process is so helpful because it allows you to go through that process and think about what has happened. Well, how did I get here? How long am I been here and why have I been here this long? So it starts to have you to think about and take an inventory of where were some things along the way where I could have made a different decision. I could have went a different way. I could have taken a different path, but I continued down that one particular path. So certainly the decision making is a factor there. Another question is, how important is a healthy family structure for someone who's dealing with mental health problems? Again, how important is a healthy family structure for someone who's dealing with mental health problems? Is so important. Number one, support in general is important. We are not islands by ourselves. We are not meant to be islands by ourselves. We are meant to be people that are connected to other people. We are meant to have engagement with other people in relationships. So as a result, anyone who has support of any kind, that's why they tell you gangs are so strong. Yeah, gangs. They're doing things that are perhaps destructive, but the support and the camaraderie and the connection in a gang is so great to the point where the persons that are involved in that gang feel like they're family. That tells you how deep connections are. That tells you how deep emotional supports and mental supports are and physical supports are. So certainly having a family structure is going to help. Now, sometimes the family might be the destruction, might be the trigger to the mental health issues and things of that nature. But there are still individuals that we can gain support from. Many of us have, aunts and uncles and cousins and godparents and things of that nature, or just close friends, and their families become our families. So again, whatever you can find that support that's healthy, that's going to give you um, healthy things, that are going to give you healthy decision making, suggestions, and give you good advice and things of those natures, and things that are not going to deter you or put you on a path of destruction. So definitely those support structures. Another question is, a person who is seeing a therapist, how effective is therapy for a person when they don't exercise a personal accountability? Let me read that again. A person who is seeing a therapist, how effective is therapy for a person when they don't exercise personal accountability? Oh, it's not going to be as effective because you are the only one in charge of your change. Put that in the comments. You are the only one in charge of your change. You are the only one in charge of your transformation. No one can make you do anything. They can drag you along the way, but it's probably not going to be healthy, and it's probably not going to be a good practice in that regard. So yes, it's going to be so important for you to be your own personal accountability, but if you can have somebody else along the journey, that would be great. Because again, sometimes we can take the journey by ourselves, sometimes we can have someone along the way, and then at some point we may have to be by ourselves in a certain phase or a certain season, but that's not all seasons. That's not all seasons. Okay. So take that moment. So yes, it's very important to, you know, kind of be your own personal accountability if you don't have someone else that can be that accountability for you. Another question here is, what are some wellness tools and tips you can give people who are directly and indirectly dealing with mental health problems? So question again, what are some wellness tools and tips you can give to people who are directly and indirectly dealing with mental health problems? First, I will tell people, be aware of what you're experiencing. So the tips throughout the workshop here was just to help you to be aware of your own stuff first. Be aware of your own stuff. Be aware when things are going off kilter for you. Be aware when things are just going off the rails or you're going off the deep end. Be aware of that. Get in touch with that. But if someone is indirectly experiencing someone's mental health issues or problems because they're in a relationship, they're in a connection, they're in a family setup or a work environment or things of that nature, be aware when people shift and change. And I'm not saying for the better. We all want to improve, we all want to transform and be different, but there are times when people's emotions change that they're not used to, maybe lashing out. They're not one that are irritable and upset about a lot of things. They're not one who was quick with their tongue and things of that nature. They're a process type person and very, engaging with people, but they're, isolated from folks. They're hands off from people. Those are changes in behaviors. Be aware of those changes. But then when you start to see those changes, reach out and say, what do I need to do differently? What do I need to kind of shift? whether it's processing it through paper, through drawing, through writing, you know, start to process and grapple with that. What's happening that all of a sudden this change is happening in my life? What is going on? Mhm. So some of those tools could be just reaching out for help and being able to talk to someone that you trust. And sometimes we don't feel like we have someone that we can trust. But perhaps you need to talk to someone who could be a neutral party, someone who could be an observer, to what you're experiencing, be someone who is an external person to your experiences. So sometimes talking to our best friends may not be the most helpful thing because they know your situation. They could be biased or things like that. So maybe talking to someone who is perhaps a neutral party who can give you more of that neutral perspective about what maybe they're seeing or hearing, things like that. Okay? Reach out, make calls. There's so many virtual platforms and things now, with the pandemic and everything that's going on. So things are shifting to that virtual world. And so we're living in it now, we're breathing in it now. And so that might be an opportunity to get you some help that you don't necessarily have to walk through a physical door. You can get it through your virtual means and have some sort of protection for yourself. Because maybe you feel like you can't trust enough to go out to the physical building. But maybe you can call up and be able to talk to someone on the virtual side. And then there's a last question here that says, a person who's dealing with mental health problems, what should they stay? What should they stay away? So what should they stay away from? Is that kind of the question there? A person who's dealing with mental health problems, they should stay away from things that are going to trigger them to go backwards. Mhm. Stay away from things that will trigger them to go backwards. Things that will trigger them to go back to a dark place. Things that will trigger them to go back to a place where they feel like that's destructive. A place where they feel like, no, I don't want to go back there ever again. That was 5 years ago. That was 10 years ago. Let's say it was a year ago. I don't want to go back to that place, that mental space, that emotional space. So things that will trigger them. So if you had issues where, people that were very negative, you internalize a lot of those things and then you were very destructive towards yourself, then you might want to look at, how do I adjust myself when negative people are around me? It's not saying you're going to avoid everybody that's negative in life. No, we need to gain some coping skills and strategies to deal with that negativity. But if it gets to a point where that negativity can't be adjusted or changed, and again, you're only in charge of your own change and your own transformation. So if that person can't see where they're impacting you and their negativity is impacting you, then you need to be able to walk away. But that's a tough thing. And it's not a blanket situation because some people may be in a committed relationship that really they got to figure out, how do I adjust in this thing? Because maybe right now you can't walk away from that relationship. Maybe right now it's not safe for you to walk away from that relationship. Can I go there? Oh, yes. Some things are just toxic. Some things are unhealthy. And you kind of got to weigh your options and say, is it danger to stay in or is it danger to get out? Which one is it? It might be danger on both levels, but which one is a greater danger? You know? So I can't say automatically people just need to, cut their losses and be gone, because you really got to know about your own situations. I tell people anytime I'm working with them is that you're going to be accountable for your own actions. You're never going to be able to walk out of here and say, I said to do X, Y, and Z. Never. Mm-mm. Suggestions may be given, recommendations may be given, maybe things you can try, but you have to be accountable for what you are choosing to do or not do, ultimately. Because you can give resources all day long, but it's up to you to decide, I'm going to take advantage or I'm not, and be accountable for that decision that you're making. Okay? One more question here. How important is religion and faith to mental, emotional health and well-being? It's very important. It is a pillar of our well-being. If we're using our scriptures as a frame of reference, it is something that we have to use as a good base. Okay. So those that may not have religion and spirituality as your focus, I'm going to deal with that here in a second, but I want to deal with those who may have that as a paradigm and as a reference, a point of reference for themselves. If religion and spirituality and those kinds of helps is a good source for you, then use that as a tool that's going to help motivate you. Use that as a tool that's going to help encourage you and push you along the way. because it is a part of our makeup. There are parts of us that need some measure of spirituality. Now, for some, that measure of spirituality may be in nature. It may not necessarily be a God figure, but those that have maybe a God or entity or a deity of some sort, then use that. What's your frame of reference? It is so important that we understand that is a vital portion of our well-being. It is. It's on the wellness wheel. Spirituality is on the wellness wheel. Financial is on the wellness wheel. Mental health and emotional and cognitive is on the wellness wheel. And so it lets us know that those things are important to our overall wellness in life. Okay. And so when we're missing some of those pieces, that definitely could be a time where we end up being off kilter because one of those areas is out of sync for us, you know? One of those areas are perhaps out of the sorts for us. Mhm. And so being mindful that it is so important to have something that you hold on to. So those again who may have religion or spirituality and whatever that capacity may be, how important that is to you is very important to your mental health. Just like we all have physical health, we all have mental health, we all have all our measure of spiritual health, we have a measure of financial health, we have a measure of all those kinds of pieces to our overall wellness and wholeness in our being. Okay. And so another question was brought up about how important is diet with mental and emotional health? Absolutely, that's important. We know we're overweight, we know we're this, we're that, or whatever the case may be. And even if you perhaps may not be weight-wise overweight, it could be other things that may be going on in your internal panels. Some people have liver issues and things like that, or diabetes, etc. And it may not always just be a weight thing. It could be some other things internally that's happening within us that we're not sure what to do. We're not sure how to behave. We're not sure how we should go about doing some things. So we have to think about in that instance, in that moment, you know, what do I need to do? Do I need to figure out a strategy and a tool? Do I need to figure out a nutritionist or a dietitian or someone who may be able to help me? Do I need to look at someone who can look at my neurological things and things are going on with pain and all of those kinds of things? All of those things are very important and very vital to our overall health. Absolutely. And it's going to take time on lifestyle changes for myself and things like that. And it takes time. And it's not so easy. You fall back and you teeter tired and all those kinds of things. I start an exercise regimen and then go back to something else and on and on and on. But you got to go through kind of that process of what do I need to do differently so that I can now think differently, I can respond differently, and I can behave differently as a result. As a result. Absolutely. Regression is a part of the process. It really is. Why? Because it's getting you on the track that I'm still moving forward. It's letting you as a reminder that I still have a ways to go. It's a reminder that I still have a process to go. So I hope that has been helpful. I'm going to ask the matter will come back on and be able to share. If there's anything else you would like to add in this particular space and moment, please do. I thank you for this opportunity at this time. So I'll just go ahead and stop sharing my screen and act if we need to. Take care, everyone.
All right. So thank you again to Ms. Carmella Hill for her expertise and her
Welcome.
wisdom and
Welcome.
practicality that
Welcome.
she shared with us. Thank you for, and I want to tell you directly, thank you for not talking above anyone's head, but you talked to us and directly
Absolutely.
at us, which is very
Awesome.
important
Awesome.
because I do believe that, whether you're in fifth grade or whether you're a PhD, you understood everything that
I
was
hope
laid
so.
out in this lesson. So thank you
Absolutely.
so much.
Oh,
We appreciate it.
absolutely.
Now, one more thing. How
Mhm.
can we reach you? How can they connect with you directly?
All right, so I'll give you my email. It's empower2hope services@gmail.com. Empower2hope services@gmail.com. So I will definitely put that in the comments there, but certainly you can reach out by email and I'll make some efforts to be able to respond to you and that kind of thing and make some other connections and things like that. I am offering some wellness sessions for people that are interested in those. And it's really not meant to be a counseling ongoing relationship. It's meant to be short term, anywhere from 1 to 4 sessions. And in essence, just to have an opportunity to just be able to share, get some guidance, some instructions, things of that nature, just be able to talk through some things, along that line. So all those wellness sessions, I can give people the link for that as well. For opportunities. But if people reach out by email, I can certainly give you the availability for those particular slots. So very limited slots. I'm not trying to overwhelm myself per se, trying to do some different things with my business and do some formal things this particular year. So I'm just trying to kind of guide things a little bit along the way. So thank you again for the opportunity.
All right. So listen, you all, if if you need her services or you want to get some advice or some wisdom from her, listen, reach out to her. You can please share this video to your social media pages, so that, like she said at the beginning, even if you can't benefit from it, somebody can on your timeline. And there are silent sufferers that are not saying anything that needs this information that this woman of God has shared with us today. Bridging the gap between mental health and the church. You cannot separate those two any longer because everybody deals with this everywhere. All right. So listen, look her up, come back and watch this video. And I will recommend everybody that was on the live, go back and watch the video because there is always something that you may have missed that could save your life or save somebody else's life. And the reason I say that is because in times past, people have came up to me and asked me something and I didn't particularly know. And then it's like the Holy Ghost bring, remember you were on that Zoom or remember you were on this live, and you give them that information. And so it's very important to take notes and to even take some mental snapshots of things that stuck out to you during this time. So thank you again, Ms. Carmella Hill. Listen, have a wonderful day, everybody. And we'll see you on the next go around. God bless.
Take care, everyone. Absolutely.